it'd be easy to throw yourself pretty deeply into your business because that's your livelihood, hopefully your passion. And the deeper you go there, the less connection you're maintaining with your wife, with your kids. And then those start having their own consequences over time. I'm in quite a few high-end masterminds, and a theme that comes up almost ridiculously often is, I sold my last company for 300 million. I'm on my third wife. My kids don't talk to me. And I'm like, well, then you have failed at the game of life.
Hey, when you think about relationships, when it goes to your family, your friends, your business relationships, how would you rate yourself, 1 to 10 in terms of reaching out and actually conversing with them, but also following up and keeping that relationship warm or hot? There's a guy that is the best in the world at connecting people, but also creating systems of what to do next and how to create this referral system that turns into JV opportunities or maybe speaking opportunities, clients, different partnerships, all sorts of things that can come from relationships, of course. Charles Byrd is back on the podcast today. He's the second time he's been on here. It's been about 3-ish years, and he's going to give you the systems on how to do this, how to create great relationships with new people, but also establish some existing ones to warm them up, and then lead them to a place that is with the best intention, with objectives, and systems are around the whole thing. So he's gonna break them all down here. It's very actionable. Enjoy it. See you in there. Hey, do you have more to-dos, less time, and an infinite number of tools to keep track of? I know I do. Doing business has never felt harder, but you don't need a miracle to hit your goals. You just need HubSpot, because their all-in-one customer platform can make growing your business infinitely easier. Just imagine this: high-quality leads, fast-closing deals, wildly happy customers, and more benchmark-breaking quarters. It's not a miracle, y'all. It is HubSpot. So visit HubSpot.com to get started today. It's great to have you back, man. And yeah, we have been keeping in touch between this span of time, and I've got to learn a lot of your systems. So thank you for kind of exposing everything that you got in terms of systems behind what I would call is you're the connector on I'd say on steroids, but also you're doing it with intention and with systems, and you're not winging any of this stuff. It's all pre-planned. Not saying I don't say that and it's like, oh, you're script everywhere you walk, because you're not. But you have a plan, which most people don't. So I appreciate that, and I'm happy you're back, man. How you doing?
Oh, thanks so much for having me back. Doing well. Been a fun, busy stretch, and it always kind of building on the things we did yesterday, build into today, and just continually ramp up. So riding one of those waves on the way out the door for a family camping trip. So.
And see, this is where, we were doing some pre-chat, and how you have systems that are the bedrock of how you do your joint venture planning, referral strategy. And that's useful in many regards personally for you, I'd imagine, because you can now plan your personal stuff in a similar systemized way, which we'll talk about a little bit. But also, it's very replicatable. You can give this operating manual, basically the system, to other business owners to do the same exact thing, or something pretty similar.
Exactly. It's all it snaps into any kind of business and adds an additional lead source that's focused on building high quality relationships, which, if you reflect on what's actually valuable in life, I suppose after you've a little ways up Maslow's hierarchy of needs, all that actually matters are relationships. Your family, your close friends, working with clients that you would love hanging out with anyway. Like people on their 100-year-old deathbed aren't thinking, oh, I wish I worked longer on that Tuesday. They're like, no, I wish I spent more time with my kids when they were younger, or I wish I took that trip to wherever, fill in the blank. People don't tend to regret things they did. They tend to regret things they didn't do. So engineering a life around that, and a business and a model around that, nothing's perfect, but if that's our aspiration, then why not engineer it to happen way more often?
Can you paint a picture of what it's almost like the tough way of doing things, like in terms of let's talk relationships. And I know it's broad, and maybe you can take it however which way, if it's family, business, all of the above, like the tough way, and then also the not so tough way, because there's definitely some clear indicators, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, I think that the tough way is kind of winging it because unless you're choosing what your priorities are consciously, like imagine if you did not have that kind of rudder, it'd be easy to throw yourself pretty deeply into your business because that's your livelihood, hopefully your passion. Um, and the deeper you go there, the less connection you're maintaining with your wife, with your kids. Um, and then those start having their own consequences over time. I'm in quite a few high-end masterminds, and a theme that comes up almost ridiculously often is I sold my last company for 300 million. I'm on my third wife. My kids don't talk to me. And I'm like, well, then you have failed at the game of life. So the point is engineer prioritizing these things up front so that you do end up with a lot more balance. Again, life ebbs and flows. I'm not pretending any of it's fully perfect, but you can certainly have it pretty damn close to perfect most of the time if you're prioritizing. And one of the ways, briefly on the family side, that I accomplish that is we try to have at least 3 family trips planned ahead. So we're about to leave on one in an hour or two. So on the way, I'm going to be like, okay, where are we going next? Because I know this weekend we're camping. Next weekend, I rented a glass house at Half Moon Bay, bringing my brother and his wife and kids and my family. So, okay, well, what's happening after that? Because if you don't plan it, the weeks come and go and the time's spent somewhere. So it's just kind of having a trigger to check in. And it's good to have a wish list and then just start family voting and prioritizing and making things happen.
I love it. Yeah, and you mentioned having a rudder. Of course, that's a whole angle in itself, I'm sure. But like the planning ahead is it just makes a lot of sense, and plus it gives you anticipation for what's to come. So you're probably a lot more motivated to have these trips. Not only are they planned, now you're doing other planning in between those trips for that trip.
I get a lot of satisfaction out of knowing those kind of trips are coming up. Other like date trips or like mastermind trips, like because then you know something exciting is just around the corner.
Yep.
So I definitely do like that that feeling of anticipation. Like if you think of as a kid at Christmas or something,
Right.
opening the present almost it's not nearly as fun as the anticipation, although that part gets a little painful too, where you're so excited. But that it's a different part of the brain that gets to appreciate that, and so it's fun just building it in to what you're doing.
I'm happy we started here because this is, like I was saying, with the Hustle and Flowchart show as a general theme. This is the part that it's not so sexy to talk about, but it's like, hey, how about, the business is great and it's scaling businesses. But you mentioned, yeah, going through wives or partners and kids not really knowing who you are. Like that scares the shit out of me, honestly. Like that is not a life well lived. And, but at the same time, there's a system, and that's how freedom is created. And that's what I really respect about you. That's the thing I'm shoring up the most on my side, whereas luckily my wife is very systemized. So that's where we collaborate very well together. Yeah, seriously, it's nice. She's my stabilizer.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. So how would you recommend, so someone who is trying to build more systems, and then I want to lead this to more of the conversation of referral partners and how us as business owners can now apply this to our business. But how would you take someone that might not have that rudder dialed in / even the systems dialed in to really keep that focus, and then bring them into a little bit more of the world that you're living?
Sure. So, I mean, there's just some basic elements of information management, task management. This heads into the land of SOPs for what you're doing around work, and just best practices and so forth. So kind of depends where someone's coming into the mix from. But for one, just being organized with how you collect and interact with information. Not everyone's wired that way. Of course, a lot of creative and relationship-focused people, that's kind of the opposite. They're great with people, but they're not great with details or follow-up. And then you've got, I'm generalizing a bit, but then you have the opposite, the very systems-minded people who tend to not be the best at interacting in social settings or those kind of things. So I have a framework that kind of can bring those things together, where if you are pretty good with people, putting systems in place so you become very dependable in your communication and interactions and following through with the things that you say you're going to do. And if you're a little more introverted, giving you very repeatable ways to connect with folks, to build rapport, to feel out ways to provide value, and then how to guide those interactions into bigger winning outcomes for everyone involved. So it's an end-to-end process that works if you meet someone at an event, whether you're a guest on someone's podcast, whether you got a warm intro from someone or shared one. It's just systematizing the process of connection and follow-up, providing value, and guiding the interactions into bigger winning outcomes.
Nice. Is that framework, is that something you can kind of share here, or is that more of a deeper dive? Yeah, because I know you have frameworks all over the place.
Sure.
Of course.
Well, let's briefly talk about if you're at an event and you're connecting with folks there. Most people may roll into some type of mastermind or event, and they may be showing up for different reasons. Maybe some want to learn some new things, but the majority of us go to events to connect with other like-minded people. And so for one, when people show up, personally, I think it's important to know what winning outcomes are for you, so that when you go in, you know what you're looking for. Because if you're just showing up and go where the wind takes you, you'll likely leave with about as much as you brought in. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you're like, I know what specific winning outcomes I'm looking for heading into this, whether that's finding joint venture partners, finding people who have platforms that would be great rooms to speak in or shows to be on, or folks that are a great fit for you to serve with whatever your product or service may be, meaning they're fully qualified and they're in a position where they may have a need around that topic. It's not assuming they do, but it's showing up purposely where more of your ideal clients are spending time, more of your ideal partners, and in rooms that you can provide the most value in as well. So for one, coming in with a list of what those winning outcomes are, I'll just mention some. So JV partnerships, speaking opportunities, referral partnerships, possibly if it's a fit and appropriate, they may be a great client. And then as you're interacting with folks, having enough awareness to figure out when you're talking to someone that represents potentially one of those winning outcomes, and then connecting with them. So the ways to go about that, again, systematic. For one, when you recognize that, say, hey, I think there's some synergy around this. Would you like to have a follow-up conversation? And when they say yes, then take 100% responsibility for getting their contact info. Mm-hmm. There's some easy ways to do that. With the new iOS, there's a feature called Name Drop, where you just touch the top of the phones together. The contact info morphs across when you approve it. Grab a screenshot of that, because even if you're added to my phone, I'd have to remember your name and even remember to look you up. So grab a screenshot so that's in your photo list. Text them immediately right when you're in front of them. Grab a selfie with them and put the context. So following up on your event in October that you're looking for speakers, or like you feed yourself the context. Because if you're meeting a handful of people and let's say you're just giving the contact info but not getting the picture and not providing the context, you'd be like, who's Steve Thomas and who is
Oh yeah.
Darlene? Or like, you don't even remember what it's about. And therefore, the odds of following up plummet and the opportunities vanish just as quickly. So, um, the biggest hack is scheduling the follow up right then so that you don't even have to follow up.
Right.
The meeting's set. And then, yeah, so those would be a few ways to operate in person where you're coming back with a very specific list of follow ups and the context of what they're about.
I love that. And that's maybe a handful of people over all the years I've gone to events or doing things anywhere remote to that methodical when you're meeting someone, because most people don't even take a picture with each other. And I know I'm not 100% there either, but what you just described is something all of us can make our own little system around at any interaction with people, where there's a follow-up necessary.
Yeah, and it creates the possibility for those opportunities to actually be explored, and if they're a fit, to actually happen. And it's like, if that step is missed, it's like not putting the seeds in the ground. It's just leaving them on the counter to blow away.
Yeah, totally. And
Um,
follow up, I mean, notoriously, most people don't have a great system, especially when they're not in their environment, maybe not in front of their task list or access to their calendar, so something like this could at least shores up a good 80-90% of like a good next step will happen, most likely.
yeah, exactly. And like I was just at an event in Austin, a think tank where I was an expert on a bunch of panels around JVs, and I had like 8 or 9 follow-ups out of that are leading to some pretty amazing things like rev share deals. And one guy runs a $140 million supplement company and wants to partner with a celebrity or major influencer. So we're in talks about that. And like, if we hadn't done these steps, those conversations never would have happened.
Mm. How do you keep track of your contacts? I mean, of course you have your phone, but like, do you have a system that you can pull, like say, oh, I have this person or this, like, how do you database that?
I definitely do. So for one, just putting folks in contacts, but two, I have a dynamic mind map I use called the Brain. It's not a tool I created, but it's at thebrain.com. And so I track experts across a whole array of verticals, and I've used that tool for 20 plus years. So
Wow.
um, basically, when interacting with someone, like today, I had a warm intro from someone in Russell Brunson's inner circle, and she is an expert at TikTok and driving traffic through getting millions of views a month. I know one other guy who's so good at that when I send him referrals, he hardly replies because he's slammed. So I was thrilled to meet her, to have someone else to send these kind of warm intros to. So I added her to this tool under TikTok expert. So I track everything from, you know, high ticket to live events to crypto to investing to tech, like whatever the topic. I have experts in the network um, around that. And not only do I track who the experts are by their vertical, but I also track all the intros coming and going, which I get 12 to 20 referrals and connections per week, and I'm giving out at least that many, if not more. So it's a machine.
Yeah.
Um, that's like I have a slide in my presentation. It says, "Are your referrals by luck or by design? Do you have a framework to systematically generate those?"
And most people would probably say no. It's just, we see what comes. I show up to events and things happen, but yeah, it's the follow-ups. Like, especially I would imagine, well, don't have to imagine. I know it's the case when you have a lot dumped in at you at once, it could become overwhelming, or maybe you're not ready for it. So you don't have these tools like the brain or other capture devices to then reference, dynamically find, like, okay, what's the next step, or what can this actually shape up to be? Hey, I'm going to pause this really fast. Shout out to a podcast by a couple of guys that actually also create one of my favorite AI tools called Cast Magic. This podcast that they produce is called DTC Pod. It's hosted by Ramon Barrios and Blaine Bolas, and it's brought to you by HubSpot, the podcast network. It's the audio destination for business professionals. So DTC Pod is a podcast about everything direct to consumer. I'm talking about e-commerce. So Ramon and Blaine cover everything from starting, growing, and optimizing e-commerce stores. And they talk to founders, marketers, platforms, creators, everything in the marketing, growth, agencies, basically any topic you can think about. So if that's you got to go check out DTC Pod. Go listen to them wherever you get your podcast. Hey, are you tired of the hassle of building sales funnels? I totally get it. I've been there. You started your business not to be chained to your laptop all day. You built it for freedom. And thankfully, there is an all-in-one platform that makes it easier for you so you can focus on attracting customers online. The platform is called Kartra, and it gives you all the tools you need to grow your business. The best part is Kartra comes stocked with all the done-for-you campaigns, so you don't have to worry about thinking about building from scratch. Everything is designed, connected, and written for you already. It also leverages AI to help you with some of this writing. All you gotta do is just customize this to your liking, and then boom, you got a fully built sales funnel for you. This is marketing made easy, so go try it out for free. 30-day free trial over at hustleandflowchart.com/Kartra will get you there. So again, that's hustleandflowchart.com/KARTRA.
When I'm at events, I use tools to track those lanes. So whether it's in Go High Level or Asana or some tool, like could be a piece of paper with notes, but putting in categories, the follow-ups, and like I have a category for intros that I'll do for other people that I meet, people that would make great JV partners, people that could make great clients, people that have stages or events. So they're in their own columns. So that way, when I'm following up, they're batched by what the topic is. And then, again, whether it's tracked through a CRM like Go High Level or even manually tracked in something like Asana, the back and forth is tracked, like texted them, offering a link to book a meeting, or they shared a time, meeting set, we had the meeting, here was the outcome. And so it's tracking it like any salesperson would, tracking their leads and so forth.
Kind of like a pipeline then.
Yeah.
Like there's phases to it.
A pipeline, and it doesn't just have to be sales. It can be the JV pipeline, the speaking pipeline. Maybe someone's doing investment rounds for their company, so you're really using the same processes regardless of the winning outcome you're seeking. So it does make the process very adaptable to what your goals are, without dictating how to go about achieving the results. Because it's just all about building great relationships and having systems to follow up and make sure those are moving forward.
And that's really it. And I feel like lately a lot of us are, we're feeling a little bit more disconnected. I'm feeling, this is more of like a holistic kind of like looking at the picture of things, like everything's a lot more digital. Yeah, sure. Like you go to a lot of events, Charles, but like, I don't know if the common folk travels around as much. Maybe there's other things that are holding them back or season of their lives. So I think just connection to friends at like a friend level relationship it's changed. I feel like over the last, since probably COVID time or all these other things and technology changing. Have you noticed that as well? Because I feel like this supports, like it aids that a little bit.
So much of this process can be built around what your own goals are. Like, so the idea of connecting, maybe someone's not in a great position to travel. Maybe they have young kids, or for whatever reason, traveling is not so much in the cards. And you're like, well, great. If I can't be out meeting people at all these events, then, what do how do I accomplish this? I'll point out you can accomplish a ton of it remotely.
Cool.
So setting up 30-minute check-in Zoom calls with folks, and really whether like in my pure JV process, whether I met someone at an event, maybe they came in from a warm intro, they're all going through the same framework. It's not predetermining how those will end up, but it does have specific pathways that they go down. And so I've built incredible relationships with people through just staying in touch through Zoom and text and things like that. I have great friends that I've never even met in person. I still think the very best relationships are built in person, but it doesn't preclude you from building amazing relationships through Zoom. So arguably there's never been a better time to connect if you aren't able to travel. So again, it's not a complete substitute, but my goodness, it can still work great. And then again, having a framework for connecting, for providing value, so that whenever you're speaking with people, you're seeking to enhance them reaching their goals by providing value first and guiding those into winning outcomes. And it's got a flywheel effect. It just keeps feeding itself. So that can help you build more relationships, deeper relationships, get connected to people you wouldn't think you could. I mean, it's pretty wild. I've been you and I were chatting offline. I had a sales call with Tony Robbins' CEO. That was a connection that came from a warm intro, a Zoom call. I did end up meeting with them in person at a few different points, but it started offline. So there's zero reason things can't progress and relationships can't be built, whether online or not.
Yeah. What you're saying reminds me of something I have been doing. I've taken a lot more intentional now into it, but is following up with or checking in with people, friends, like literally just going through my contact list and all, or maybe previous texts. And in the morning, typically when I'm driving back from started jujitsu recently early in the morning. So I'm like, okay, 7 a.m. I have time for like 3 voice messages I can go shoot out to my friends or colleagues or whoever. It really doesn't matter. Just to check in, minute or less. And, like it's just showing up in their lives can open, it's the whole, small hinges open big doors. Who knows where it goes?
Yeah, I love it that you're doing that. I call that the power of the ping. And I was at an event many years ago and was hanging out with a friend for like 3 hours. And when we were winding down, he's like, hey, if I ever come to mind, just ping me. And it struck me as weird. I'm like, well, what if you're at dinner with your kids, or what if you're delivering a webinar? Like, what do you mean just ping you? But then I was like, sure, I'm going to just start doing this with everybody. So when people come to mind, you were reminded of them, and you were reminded of them for a reason. And typically that reason's a good enough reason to ping them. So what I mean is maybe you just chatted with one of their best friends. So then that association brought them to your mind. That's a good enough reason to ping them. Hey, I was just on with Zion or whoever, and your name came up anyway. Just wanted to check in with you, hear what you're up to. I'll give you a great example of that. So
cool.
One of my good friends and clients, Kane Minkus, who helped him add 8 million through joint ventures, he's into tech. He's got one of those Zoomzilla walls. Like he's full on production guy, right? And I got a new camera a while back, and I knew he would think that's cool. So I sent him a video like, hey, I've got this new Sony, blah, blah, blah. All I was talking about was something I knew he'd have an interest in. And he replies back, nice camera. Hey, I'm putting together this big JV with Kevin Harrington of Shark Tank, John Ashraf would love to have you be part of it. I didn't ping him for that, about that. I didn't even know about that. But to your point, by just maintaining a great relationship, it keeps you top of mind, and you're someone who's in their life kind of ongoing instead of just showing up when you need something, which is the fastest way to have a relationship not work.
That's right.
So it's just maintaining that connection, always looking out for people. I mean, as an example, I have a client that our work had wrapped up probably more than a year ago. They do these ultra high-end events, winning world-class awards, international awards. So when I was talking to Tony Robbins, CEO, putting these, I mean, they're running a very high-ticket mastermind, which means the experience has to be world-class, right?
Right.
So I'm like, you guys have to meet, tee up that intro. That just creates goodwill everywhere you go, because it's a help to Tony's team. It's obviously a enormous connection for the events company. So that mindset, take it everywhere you go. Listen to what people are trying to achieve. Give them a pathway there, whether it's through your products or services or not. And sometimes they will be aligned with yours and they can head into your sales process or JV process. But otherwise, you're just in service of others in a systematic way.
That's it, man. It's being in service. Or Joe Polish, I know he's been, be useful. Mike Koenigs and I were honored to be able to do a whole workshop at Genius Network a couple weeks back. And, it was for a full day, 9 hours or something like that, which Joe was there the whole time, which was really cool. And his book, What's in It for Them, is an awesome read. And unfortunately, I read it after the fact. I didn't even know it was around before that. I'm like, oh, man. But, and he talks a lot about this kind of stuff as well. And to your point, being useful to someone, showing up in their lives, like those things it's not the most intuitive approach for most people's behaviors, and you mentioned the power of the ping. Well, this is what I've found is like once I send a few messages in the morning, I immediately start to think of other people. Like they just like other names will pop into my mind and I'll either fire them off right then and there or I'll do it quickly after. But it's like every single day, what 3 to 5 people, just like clockwork. Don't even think about it. Just do it.
We've certainly come to the same conclusion there, because I'll be brushing my teeth in the morning and figure out I've texted 2 people already. And I'm like I'm not even thinking about it. It just happens. So, and then you're connecting and maintaining relationships over time, and beautiful things come out of that. So many opportunities, so many connections. I got a referral today from a friend and client. These come up out of the blue, and they come up in very organized, structured ways as well. But when you're always looking out for other people, it just comes back. Like there's no other way around it.
Yeah, you can't stop it once it goes, and it's a flywheel, especially you keep it going. This is why I love the podcast. I mean, we talked about it before, how having a virtual stage like this, like if you have one, have a follow-up mechanism or a way to extend the conversation, lead them into the next thing. And you can do that on the show, or what I like to do is send a Loom video thank you. And it's, a minute or less, but basically gratitude, maybe a couple things we talked about and how I can serve them, and, figure out what that next step looks like. And I know you have formulas for all of this. We won't have time to get into all that stuff, but
you definitely raise a good point. Anyone listening who's already doing podcasts or has your own podcast, the podcast itself is a beautiful way to build connection and rapport. And then that should be channeled into a bigger winning outcome where possible. Actually, the same gentleman who sent me a referral today, he'd done 1,000 interviews, but did not have a framework to take them anywhere. So only one of them turned into a joint venture. And then once he was trained on, here's how you run your show like you normally would, but before you hang up, line up the next step toward one of your winning outcomes. Now he books joint ventures and gets referrals on most shows. So or clients. So it's a amazing tool when used with a strategy.
Yeah, I think that goes for, I mean, I'm just thinking of our whole conversation, and no matter what your business is, wherever you're engaging with people on a normal basis, even if you don't have that, we all have a phone, we all have contacts, at least you could start there. But figuring out what's the end in mind, again, just like what you said, going to events, like what's maybe some ideal outcomes out of each interaction that you already have going on within your business or life.
Right. And like for me, those winning outcomes are the same, whether it's a connection at an event, a warm intro, like they're not like completely different just because they end up the same. Like you're probably always scouting for great guests for the show. You're
You
probably
know,
always scouting for great JV partners for your AI offers. And when you have those things in mind, it makes it way easier to feel that out and create more winning outcomes.
that's it. Well, hey, Charles, I mean, we've hit a lot, and I think at the end of the day, it's creating systems, being useful. And again, using that term, that's where I heard Joe Polish talk about it, but it's essentially what we're talking about here is engineering usefulness is exactly what I feel like you've done really well, and extending that into a whole referral system that can generate sales opportunities across the board.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate that. Yeah, Joe and I certainly have come up with a lot of similar and overlapping, like I call it providing value first. He has specific ways he describes it, and he's right. So it
Yeah.
works well. His book, What's in It for Them, it's the same mentality. How can I serve others? And in my framework, it's being of service while determining which winning outcome may align and should they align, guiding straight into it as well.
Yeah. Now, and seeing and going through your coaching and the frameworks and systems. I mean, there's no one better than you to literally implement a system and have clear next steps across the board, no matter what your business is, no matter where you're engaging with people often. There's a way to build referrals that turns into more business and a happier life that's systemized and predictable, at least as much as we can do and control.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, cool. From the first time we did the show and then doing it now that you've experienced some of those things, I always felt like with your network and the fact you are using the show, like the opportunities are vast, and
Yeah.
the same goes for anyone listening.
That's right.
Just having a framework around it and beautiful outcomes are the norm.
Yeah. And we didn't even talk about all the wild folks that you work with on a daily basis. You mentioned Tony and, having calls, and it's incredible the people that you work with. So this stuff works, y'all. And I am speaking to the person, actually one person, not y'all. That was bad on me. But where can this person listening or watching go and explore more of Charles and what you got at Pure JV?
Well, thank you. For
Yeah.
one, you can pop over to charlesbyrd.com, BYRD. Also put together a little something for your listeners.
Nice.
You can put in the show notes, of course, but it's my.purejv.com/hustle dash flow. And so there's like a JV checklist there. There's a 10-minute talk from the Genius Network on partnerships
Oh,
and
cool.
different types of partnerships, how to connect, how to provide value first, kind of going deeper based on some of the things we were talking about today.
Right on, man. Yeah, I'm on the page now. I can't wait to watch it. So yeah, we'll definitely link that in the show notes. And again, I just want to shout that out. That is my.purejv.com/hustle dash flow. So
Beautiful.
Charles, appreciate you, man. And yeah, definitely if you're listening and watching still, go hit up Charles. Can't go wrong by learning some of these systems and take that next step with him if it feels right.
Thank you so much for having me, and for you listening right now, just come up with two people that you haven't been in touch with for a bit, maybe a previous client, maybe someone you connected with at an event, just shoot them a ping, check in, say, hey, you're top of mind, wanted to see how things are going, love to hear what you're working on, and take it from there. And just start doing that like Joe does every day on his drive, and like I do throughout the day as well.
Awesome. Power of the ping right there. Do it.
That's
do
right.
it. Do it. Thank you, Charles. Appreciate you, man.